across all time zones, covering both hemispheres. It's time for another featured music special on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Z-Man Studio 1A. Glad you folks are with us tonight. Got a great band coming your way. A band is technically the correct word, but perhaps I should be saying choir. I love choir music. I love the human voice. I love when it's done well. And we have coming up for you a wonderful guest and a wonderful choir. Let me give a warm ArtistFirst welcome to Dimitri Lawrence Scruggs. Hello, Dimitri.
Hello.
Welcome to the station.
Thank you. I thank you so much.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you on. And let's start out like I like to do on these types of shows, talking about you as a person and introducing you to the listeners. Okay. A little echo in my headphones here. Well, tell us about yourself. Where'd you grow up, and how was your childhood?
I'm out of Nashville, Tennessee. Grew up in a small town outside of Nashville, Tennessee, more specifically. Always majored in music, studied music, and it's my passion.
Tennessee. When did you know you were that music was going to be a gift to you?
I believe I started writing at the age of 5 with simple, small tunes, and my family started singing them, and they couldn't get them out of their heads. So I knew that was my thing, and that's what I wanted to do. I started studying piano at the age of 9, and so piano was my primary and is my primary instrument.
Well, I too played piano. I played professionally for 40 years before retiring last year. But no. I could not carry your equipment into the gig. That's how much better of a keyboard player you are than I. So I'm.
Oh, that's so nice.
I'm bowing down. I'm not worthy. But the piano is a wonderful instrument, isn't it? It's. If you're going to be a choir director, if you're going to do harmonies, if you're going to, the piano, it's right there in front of you. You can see it.
It really is, and it can be a basis for learning all of the instruments. I was a band director and a music teacher for 20 years in the public school system.
Wow. And that must have been an interesting job. I grew up with a father's a school teacher. Oh, boy. How was that experience for you?
It was very interesting. I made sure that I taught all grades, K through 12, in every subject because I wanted that experience. So wow. I've taught a piano keyboard lab, as I said before, band, and I even taught choir at all levels and all grades.
Do you remember your very first performance, either as a child or an adult?
Oh, my gosh. My mom was a music writer, so she wrote some songs, and they received some awards in New York. So I started at a very early age with my pianist being James Hendricks. He's passed away, but he wrote a lot of music. And my very first performance probably was in a talent show. So, yeah, and since then, I performed quite a bit.
And, as any performer, some folks are very comfortable performing and others aren't as comfortable, to say the least. How are you, at least back then? I don't know if you can remember specifically, but when you were a youngster, sometimes that's a wonderful experience and sometimes it's really tough.
Right. It definitely can be. I think I'm in the middle. I'm not too nervous, but I know it's great to have some nerves because you don't want to be overconfident.
That's for sure. But you also don't want to be petrified with fear.
Right.
See, my old band, we were used to having people scream at us and throw stuff at us, so we just pretty much expected it. We got used to it, so you didn't have those butterflies anymore. Yeah,
That's a funny story.
when our band when our band took requests, people would request us to stop playing music, but we
No.
we continued on. Ah, the good
I
old days.
know. That's not true. You're making that up.
Oh, you don't know. I'll tell you on break during the first song. Anyway, well, the choir. Oh my God, I love choir music. I love the type of music that you guys do here. It's truly in a category by itself, and it comes with a lot of challenges. So before we get into that, tell us, how did you become involved with the Simply Praise Choir?
The Simply Praise Choir is made up of community churches in Nashville, Tennessee, and the surrounding areas. I began with all of the churches, reaching out to all of the churches that I previously played for in my life. So it's comprised of all of those individuals.
Well, that's a big task. How many people are in the choir?
Approximately 25. The number has varied. It's depending on what they're doing in their churches and the seasons and their calendars.
Right. I've been a band leader for the largest group we ever had was 6, and oh my God, it was like herding cats. You know, musicians are wonderful people, but it's
Exactly.
it's hard to focus. People, focus. Yes.
Right.
Oh, I dare I ask, what's it like to be a choir director?
It's fun. It does have its challenges, like you mentioned, but it's interesting for me. That's what I've always wanted to be. That's what I've known. So as far as writing and teaching the parts, I thoroughly enjoy that.
And we're going to get into that. This is great. I think only once. I've been doing this for over 20 years. And I'm having trouble remembering, well, what I had for lunch, but I'm also having trouble remembering the last time I interviewed a choir and all the unique challenges that you face recording and performing. But we'll get into that in a moment. First, folks, I'd like to play a track. This one's called He's Alive, and I'd like you guys to just enjoy this track, and when we get back, we'll talk some more with Dimitri. But check this out, people. This is great music. Here we go. Oh, man. You recorded, Dimitri, did you record that live?
I did not record that one live. We did go into a studio for that selection.
Oh, you see, you fooled me. You put that little bit of hand clapping and stuff in there. See, I figured it was live. Well, let's talk about that. Well, first, before you can record a song, you have to write a song. And let's talk about that. All the music, folks, you're going to be hearing tonight from the Simply Praise Choir has been written by our guest, Dimitri Lawrence Scruggs. That's how gifted and talented she is. Okay, let's look at that last song we just heard. It is entitled "He's Alive." Now, just generally speaking, when you sit down to write a song like that, do you begin with scripture? Do you begin with a melody? How does that creative process work for you?
For different songs, it comes to me differently. The tune may pop in my head during a dream. I may be about my day, and a tune will just come to me. And I'll either go to the piano, and when I go to the piano, sometimes it's in the key that it came to me, or I'll sing it in my cell phone, and that way I can keep it to develop later.
Isn't technology wonderful?
It is, very.
Oh, man, the number of songs that were lost over the last 50 years because didn't have a handy recording device, and you have it in your head, and a different thought comes in, and it's gone.
Right.
Now, you said something very intriguing there. You said, I sometimes hear a song in my dreams.
I do.
Yep, that's
and I'll wake up. It could be at 2 a.m, and I'll just go to the piano and I'll just start playing it.
Yeah, there's parts now. All my buddies and I, all these years, none of us can read music. We play 100% by ear, and so we have a different understanding of music than what is formally taught. I don't know how to describe that since we're a bunch of, as far musically, we're illiterate, but we can play just about anything we can hear. But there are times when I'll struggle working on a piece of music that I can't quite master, and in my dreams, I will see how to play it. It's like, wait a minute.
Oh, that's awesome.
It should, hey, this is how you do that. It's like, wow. So that begs the question, Dimitri, as musicians and composers, are we really making this stuff on our own, or do you think that a higher force is being allowed to flow through us?
To me, I've always felt it's God-given. With studying music, I can understand later on, and I'll look back and say, oh, this is why this is here, or this is an analysis of this, or such and such. But I believe it's totally God-given.
Now, do you come from? You mentioned earlier that you'd be playing songs and your family would sing along. So am I to assume you come from a musically gifted family?
My mom sung a lot, and I love all genres, so I try to play, mix, and sing all genres and write, incorporating my basic genres, gospel and Christian music, but I do come from a musical family. There were 4 of us, and we each play an instrument.
Now we've been having this semi-scholarly discussion for the past 20 years with musical guests on the station, and the question is the old psychology question: is it nurturing or nature? In other words, did you learn music because you grew up around musicians, or did you learn music because you were born with it?
I think there's an innate. You're born with it, so but it can be developed through education, music education.
That's a great answer. But you're absolutely right. There are people that I know in my circle of friends, and I guess myself included, we can just do this. It's just something we can do.
Right.
And other people look at you and go, "How can I don't know. I just know how to do this. Just always have."
Correct.
And now that's something for some PhD dissertation somewhere someday to figure out. Okay, so you got an idea. Maybe it comes to you in the middle of the night, like you say, and you're talking to your cell phone, you save it. So now you got this idea. So where do you go from there?
Like I said, I walk to the piano and I'll start playing it. But bits and pieces can be given to me later on. It's not like always the full song is given to me. Now, I have had that to happen, but like maybe the chorus is only given to me at one moment, and then I'll develop the verse or a vamp or whatnot later on. So bits and pieces.
And are you hearing, like what we just heard, there was a lot of instrumentation in there. You got a drummer, you got a bass player, you got other instruments. Do you hear all that at the time? Of course, the piano, being such a dynamic instrument, it kind of helps you with those things, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And I have heard that all at one time, but oftentimes, oftentimes, it's given in bits and pieces.
Okay, so let's take this to the next step. You've got this idea. You've worked it out on the piano. Now, do you write out sheet music? Is that what you do?
I have done that in the past, and back in the day, we used to write it by hand, but now there's computers, and you can sync your keyboard up to the computer and use a program to develop it. So I do have sheet music. I have sheet music for He's Alive, the one you just played.
Okay.
It's available.
Now, do all your... Okay, let's take it to the next. By the way, I did that on my old DX7 once. I can't read it, but it looks great on the wall. It looks like Chinese to me, but they tell me that's one of my songs. Okay, I just think it's cool to look at. Yeah, I did that.
Yes.
Yeah, well, when you don't read music, it's kind of neat. Now, okay, so here you are. Let's talk a little gear first here. What kind of piano do you have?
Right now, I have a Kimball baby grand piano, and then I have a Yamaha motif keyboard.
Oh wow, you got the stuff.
And then I purchased a little Hammond M3. It's not the B3, it's the M3. So I have those keyboards, and
wow,
I do have a little smaller keyboard as well.
Wow, the Kimball baby grand, man. I got 7 pianos. One's acoustic, Story and Clark, and the others are all electronic, like Yamahas and the like. You have the motif. I couldn't afford that. I was outside of my DJ's pay scale, so I had to get the MOX-8, and I love it. I love it.
Oh, those are nice, too.
Well, I'm told it has the same brains, but not all the same guts. So supposedly the music... I'll tell you what. I was backing up some chick last fall. She asked me to back her up in a couple songs, just me and her. And I took that MOX-8 down to this nightclub venue and played it through this giant PA system. And the sound man came up to me and said, "Z-Man, it sounds..." And I was using a piano sound for the show. And he says, "It sounds like you're laying your ear on the soundboard of a piano." I mean, it's everything you want, I mean, it's every performer's desire to get that sound to come out of a pair of speakers. Okay, I should get an endorsement from Yamaha.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's just, if my house catches on fire, once I get my loved ones out, I'm grabbing that MOX-8, man. Anyway.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, the technology has come so far, keyboard-wise, in my generation. I mean, you just have to lug around a Fender Rhodes 73s. Did you ever play a Fender Rhodes?
Oh, I remember those.
150 pounds. Well, then you're talking about Hammonds. Hell, if you carried a Hammond organ around, you needed 3 people in a moving company. I mean.
Right.
All right, well,
exactly.
I digress. Okay, so here you've got this song. Now, how do you teach it to, are you the one that decides? Do you have a producer, but you go, "No, I want a drummer on this, I want a bass player, and I want, XYZ. Do you decide that and then go out and hire people? How do you put the record together?
I do decide that. I'm fortunate to have that ability. I decide where the cymbals should be, or drum rolls, etc. And I'm fortunate to have people in the Nashville area that want to work with me. So that's been a blessing for me. And they say, "I want to play with you this weekend," so I'm very fortunate. to have that.
Well, Nashville probably has a collection of the best musicians in the world. Probably.
Oh my goodness, there are some really great musicians in the city.
Yeah, I can't go there. I feel intimidated. I've got a couple friends right here from this town that go down there and play regularly. Make a living down there playing honky tonk and stuff. But yeah, so you go out and hire session players. Now, do you give them a recording? Or you give them a scratch track? How do they know what their parts are going to be? I'm talking musicians at first.
I sing it to them or I play it for them. They have said that listening to my piano music, specifically the bass players, that they can hear what they're supposed to do with their bass line. So that's been great and worked out for me as well.
Okay, so it's day number 1 to do your recording. First of all, where do you record?
I've used 2 different studios out of Nashville, Tennessee. I've been fortunate to work with who I consider some of the best in budding in the production industry.
Wow. Now, the studio experience is similar to performing live, but it's a whole different animal, and musicians react differently in the studio situation than they do in the live situation.
Right.
Even though it's very important, what you do in the studio will outlive you, and future generations will be able to listen to your work in a studio. When you think about those kinds of things, when the recording light comes on, do you get, I don't know, when you're putting your parts down, is it more difficult when you know you're recording than when you're just not recording? See what I'm trying to ask?
It is different when that light comes on. I have recorded the piano. Most of my songs, the piano has been recorded first.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Why don't you just do that at home on your motif and take it in, right?
I haven't done it that way, but that is a great idea, and I have thought about that. So I have actually just gone in the studio and sat down and played. It's been done to a click. So I have done it, previously recorded in that manner.
Yeah, because you got to set the time signature. That you have to have a click or a drum or a scratch track you can delete. Why, listeners? Because so that everybody can stay on track. It's like a blueprint when you're building a house. It tells you where the windows and the doors go and how many feet's between them. The same thing with a click track does and a scratch track. We call it a scratch track. We put that thing down with a little drum beat behind and a piano player, and it's never going to be on the final copy, but it keeps everybody, here's the verse, here's the chorus. It's 120 beats per minute.
Yes, sure.
In fact, the last 2 records I worked on them in my home studio using my MOX8. They just email me the song. I put my part down, email it back. If they don't like it, they email, and I never set foot in another studio.
Right. I've had a drummer to do that for me, too, where they have gone, and after I've done my part, and they have gone and recorded their part, and it was emailed.
Now, I'm glad you brought up drummers. I love drummers. I work with several. But when it comes to recording, I haven't used a real drummer in 15 years. What?
I know. They've got to know how to play to a click if you have a real live drummer.
Well,
important.
With today's modern, I got an Alesis drum machine. I think it's like $150, but it sounds so good, and it's never late, and it always plays exactly what you want. You got to learn how to program it, but now when you play out live, you have to have a real drummer. But from the studio standpoint, it's the most difficult instrument to set up. Even if you got a simple studio, you got 4, 5, 6 mics on the drum set. And again, okay, in that case, when you're using a real drummer, that whole part takes as much time as probably 2 or 3 other instruments just to get the drumming down, just because it's a more complex recording method.
It does. Now, on my song, We Have Come, I did not use a real live drummer. So I did record it in the manner that you're speaking of.
And nobody can tell. There's no way to tell.
Right,
It's
right.
It used to be you could tell when somebody was using a store-bought drum machine, but not anymore. Not for a long,
I
long time.
know. Technology, as you said.
All right. Well, okay. So that's getting the music down is pretty much the same, probably, as any band. Record the stuff, and then you bring your vocals in after you have most of your music tracks down. Is that when you decide to record your vocals?
I do. I record my vocals after the track is completed.
All right, now this is where it gets interesting because any band does what you've done up to this point, but now here's where the rubber meets the road. So you bring in how many people to do the vocals?
It depends. Now, in the recording industry, you can use, like say you have sopranos to record first. You can use some of your sopranos to sing alto. It just depends on their range. So I have done that as well. Sometimes, well, all of the times we've divided by the sections. We'll record the sections separately.
Now, when you say section, what do you mean by that? Do you mean do several people sing at the same time and you just put a couple of mics up and capture it all?
Right. We've had the mics with the headphones on. And in my songs, I've recorded the sopranos, altos, and tenors. So there is one song that I'm going to release in the future that has some basses, and that's a cappella. But all of my songs thus far have had instrumentation.
Now, how do you teach? My reference earlier about herding cats. So you got, I don't know, what's a number of people you'd bring in for the He's Alive song? How many folks were involved in the choir vocal section of that song?
Now, I think that one was about, I want to say 12 to 25. I have taught, now that song specifically, I use a technique of unintentional learning. So,
of what? Unintentional learning? What is that?
Unintentional learning.
What is that?
I did a method. I did a study with a university, and that was the first song I ever put out. So I taught by that method. I didn't tell them specifically what style of music it was going to be. I did a poll where I polled and found out what style they did not like the most. And so then I went back and incorporated that into the song that I wrote. And I put words to it. So then after I wrote it and I taught it to them, they said, "Oh, I like that." And I said, "By the way, that was the style that you said you did not like the most." And they were like, "We like it that way." So
Wow.
That was my unintentional learning technique.
I've never heard of that. Outstanding. So then you'll have to separate the vocalists in their different ranges and then teach them each section, each part?
Yes.
Just like
correct.
we were when we were in choir in high school. That's what.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know any other way to do it. You gotta sit those people down. Wow.
Right.
Well, let's hear the results of your hard work, folks. If you're just tuning in, we're speaking with Dimitri Lawrence Scruggs. She has a Simply Praise Choir. That's the name of it, and they do a heck of a job. She's been telling us about the recording process, which is an arduous process. When you're talking about, well, if you had 25 vocalists and 4 or 5 musicians, you're over 30 people. Okay, that's a lot of people to get organized and pointing in the right direction. Ultimately, to get something to come out of a pair of speakers that's currently running around your head, it's not an easy thing to do. Let's try this one, folks. This one's called Why Do We Cry?
Why do we cry when Jesus said, "I am with you. I am the way, the truth, and the light. If any man be in me, he
Man, that's fantastic stuff, folks. Dimitri Lawrence Scruggs is our guest. Simply Praise Choir is what you were just listening to. Dimitri, tell us about lead vocalist on that. She was getting it, man. Who is that?
That's Charlene Harrison. She's out of Nashville, Tennessee as well, and she has other CDs out.
Wow, was that your Hammond in the background there?
I had a different organist on that particular song. I've been fortunate to work with 3 organists out of the Nashville, Tennessee area. So I think I've had, one organist played on 2 songs, and then I had different organists for the other 2 songs that I have released.
Uh-oh. Didn't have my mic turned on there. So now that you get recordings together and you have the Simply Praise Choir, now what do you do with it? Do you go out and perform? What's the plan?
We have performed previously. We've sung with different artists and programs, and then I went to work at a public school for music education, so I kind of slacked back then, but now I'm back at it, and I'm doing this 100% now. So wow. We are planning to, I don't want to say perform in the gospel or Christian industry, but we're planning to sing in front of people soon.
Well, it's everybody likes gospel music. You know, I don't know anybody that doesn't like gospel music. And if you don't like gospel music, then frankly, you need your head examined. It's wonderful, wonderful music, not to mention the obvious message that gospel music. So let's talk about that. You know, it's obvious what you do, that you're a woman of faith. Tell us about your commitment to the Lord Jesus Christ.
I joined church probably when I was 9, so that was many moons ago. So as with the faith walk, you've had ups and downs. So he's brought me through a lot of different things, and I just attribute all of the glory to God.
What's that old phrase? In heaven, there must be a hell of a band. Wasn't there a song like that back in?
There's got to be music in heaven, don't you think?
Yeah, no, there was a song. That was the hook. Because you know they got a hell of a band. That was the second line of the chorus. It was a chart topper back in the 70s.
I'll have to look that one up. That sounds like an interesting song.
Oh, it's half going through my brain here. But I don't have that many brain cells left, so I'm going to have to think about something else. Because you know they got a hell of a band. I'm stuck. The hook's going to be in my brain now for the rest of the show. Now, there's a difference in my understanding of these complicated topics. There's a difference between religion and spiritualism. A person can be religious but not a spiritual person, and vice versa, or they can be both. Do you consider yourself a spiritual person?
I think I'm both. And I do understand what you're saying, but I think I'm both. I feel His presence. And I've got a new release coming out about that, about listening to Him at all times of the day. So I do feel like He talks to each and every one of us. So that's the spiritual side. So I feel like I'm in the middle. I'm both. I wanted to say that I started out this year, when you were talking about the faith walk, I started out this year with a vision in my head, and it just simply says, take risks based on faith to make positive changes that glorify God. And that's what I really dug my heels in and have tried to do this year.
Wow. How's it going so far?
It is going great. It was scary at the beginning and nervous, but I've done what I felt God has asked me to do, And in doing so, it looks like at times it may be dim, but there is a light. There is a light, and he is showing me the light as I go through.
Well, you know the expression. It's always darkest right before it goes pitch black.
That is so true. That is so true.
Now, but you know, I would never pretend to know the ways of God, but sometimes you just got to laugh. You know, you think things don't turn out the way you think they are, and you look back and go, I wonder if that was God making a difference there.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, okay. It must be very rewarding because of the type of music that you put out and, you know, performances where people are coming to hear gospel music. It must be very rewarding to see when you really touch somebody. You know, bar bands and wedding bands, you don't get that kind of direct feedback from your audience. But
that is the main thing. It is very rewarding. And a lot of the, I want to call them signed fans to my radio airplay and Django and CD Baby, they reach out to me, and I love it when they reach out to me because I want to know that it's helping people because it helped me to get through different situations. So that is the main thing.
And wow, what a blessing that is. A direct
yes,
feedback.
Sir.
Just think it, you know, and there must be millions of others who might have equally been impressed and touched by your music that will never contact you, that you'll never hear from.
That's true, too.
Wow. Kind of makes work getting up in the morning a little easier, doesn't it?
It does. It really does.
So have you had any, let's talk about the live performance thing. Cripe. Now, in your case, when you go play somewhere, does the venue provide all the equipment that you're going to use? You know, do you take a band? Do you play the recordings? What's a typical gig for you?
I take my musicians. In one case, they have, well, in more than one case, they have provided the instruments, but I've purchased that rolling bag. I know you know what those are, yeah. That you can put your Yamaha in and roll that with you. And I have done some setups. I have been at a venue where they said they had the keyboard, and then you get there and you see it's in a different condition. And at the last minute, I'm calling this my musician friends, and they come through and rolled in their keyboard in the area. So it's been all different case scenarios.
Yeah, we got tired of that, and I don't know, 39 years ago, and we always bring our own stuff, the whole thing.
And now, yes,
everything. Because you know what?
Yes, bring your things.
Well, it's terrible when you've worked very hard to perfect your craft, and you've rehearsed, and you go to a venue, and they provide you with a sound man and a PA, and the guy doesn't know what he's doing, and he makes you sound terrible. You know, one guy sitting way back there that doesn't know what he's doing can destroy your whole show. Okay, well,
I'm starting to make some friends with those sound people around Nashville. That is true.
We went to a gig and the sound man only had one ear. I swear to God, he had one ear. I'm like, how much extra for a sound man with two ears?
Very important.
The only other option is to bring all of your equipment, and that's why it takes 2 truckloads. When my band was working, yeah. Because we weren't leaving anything to chance, and we brought our own stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us, you're missing a great artist and some great music. Dimitri Lawrence Scruggs has a Simply Praise choir, and we've been going down through the music. We got a couple songs to play before we're done with the show. Dimitri, tell folks, and we'll ask you again, but for right now, where can folks find out more about you, and how can they support you?
Oh, my gosh. My music sells on approximately 34 different sites. CD Baby or Django Radio for a listing. I'm on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Google Music Store, Amazon, Apple iTunes, YouTube. We're on Facebook as well under Demetri Lawrence Scruggs featuring Simply Praise Choir.
Well, folks, get out there and download. Folks, when you use Spotify, the artist gets like 1/1000th of 1 penny.
That's right.
Maybe a little less than that. But when you download a song and spend $1, the artist gets like 89 cents of that dollar. It's an infinitely higher payout than what you get on these streaming services. So you got $1, folks? Can you spend $1? Can you support this great organization? That would be wonderful if you can. All right, what we've got. Let's see. Have we played? I'm losing track. Have we played? We have not played this track yet. I don't want to screw this up. It's called "We Have Come."
Right.
Well, tell us about this song before we play it. What was your life going through, and what situation were you in when this song came into existence?
Now, that was one of the tunes that just popped into my head, and I went to the piano, and it popped into my head in the key of B flat. So if you've ever studied the B flat scale, it can be an etude to the B flat scale.
Isn't that what they call the devil's key?
Is it?
No, because of the difficulty to play.
I like that key.
Wow.
But I guess I try to make sure that I learn to play in all keys, because you never know when you go to different places what could occur. So that one is in the B flat key. And it sort of introduces our choir. It's an introduction to our choir. We talk about in the song that it's just about simply praising him, and it incorporates the doxology, a doxology, I should say, because there are more than one that people speak of, but it incorporates praise God from whom all blessings flow.
We've got a little song we want to sing for you. It just simply says, we have come to praise him. Choir, are you ready? Yeah! Here we go.
We have come to worship Christ and to praise him. We have come to worship Christ and to praise him. Praise God from whom all blessings flow.
Man, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys are enjoying as much as I am this wonderful, wonderful, inspirational music. Yeah, I'm going to tell you straight up. I was just telling Dimitri that if, I wish this is what the music was like in the church that I go to, but it's nothing like that, and it's barely tolerable. And I'll get some hate letters from my fellow church members, but wow, Dimitri, so who do you listen to when you're not doing all this stuff and you're working on your choir and this giant project you've undertaken? Who do you listen to?
I listen to everything. I do love all types of music. I'll listen to gospel, I'll listen to classical, I'll listen to country, I'll listen to all types of music. An inspiration for me in the gospel music industry, though, is Kirk Franklin. I was in the radio station myself when he first started, so upon listening to him the first time, I kind of fell in love with that style of music and his inspiration to me.
And isn't it odd, folks, that the first time you hear a song and you really like it, 50 years could go by, and when you hear that song again, you remember exactly where you were. It's something that goes into like long-term memory of the brain. I mean, this is, I think, scientific fact. You know, that why? What is it? The power that music has, Dimitri? I don't expect you to answer this question, but you know, I think it's a rhetorical one. But what is it about music that grabs people?
I think it's universal. Music is universal. It's a universal language. I believe it has the power to heal, too.
Okay, you brought it up. I got to mention this. We have a program called Pyramids on Mars, UFO Radio. Okay, some of you guys are snickering. That's fine. This guy's out of Canada. He's a guitar player, and he claims to have been contacted by aliens who have told him to start producing his music at the 438 kilohertz. You know, A440 is what we use for the key of A. Anyway, they told him a different frequency of his music, and it would help expand the consciousness of the listeners. Now, you just mentioned that music can heal. That's why I started mentioning this. You know, and again, music is frequencies, right? It's the vibration. That's what it is. So,
right.
I don't know. So do you think all that's a bunch of hooey, or do you think there's any validity behind what I just said?
That sounds very interesting. I'm going to have my ears open and listening to that segment.
It's at 432, I believe, is the kilohertz that they want him to produce. By the way, the guy's name's Kevin Estrella, and he is a fantastic guitar player. It's all instrumental, and he is on a different level, folks. I could practice the rest of my life, and I'll never get that good. Well, Dimitri, we're coming up on the last few minutes of the broadcast. What have we not mentioned on the program that you want to get out to the listeners? Is there anything we've left out?
You've been very thorough, and I appreciate and thank you so much for this opportunity to reach others, and hopefully this music will help them as well as it has helped me.
Well, thank you for allowing us to play your music on our station. I'm sure our listeners are digging this big time. Now, you've got a lot of music in you and a lot of years and years and years to put out more wonderful music, and praise God. What's what's next in line for you?
I've got several songs coming out, and we have a Facebook page, so I will post different tidbits or information on that Facebook page.
Well,
keep that up to date.
And that's linked up on the ArtistFirst homepage, and the Facebook link will be right next to the archive link if you're listening to this as an archive. We always want to make it easy for you to get in touch with the artists you hear on here. But for somebody that doesn't have a screen in front of them, please give out your Facebook address.
I'm sorry. It's under Dimitri Lawrence Scruggs featuring Simply Praise Choir.
And the link we have is facebook.com/Simply Praise Choir Official. Got that?
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry.
I didn't have that right in front of me. Thank
I'm sorry
you so
to
much.
put you on the spot like that. Some people are driving. Some people don't have a screen in front of them. Simply Praise Choir Official is after the Facebook, and you can surf on over.
Yes, sir.
And that's where you're going to post upcoming gigs. When people start listening to these programs years from now, they can find out where you're playing?
Right, I will.
Well, please come back when you get more material out and your next stuff is ready for the world to hear. We'd love to have you back and love to continue to support your project and play this wonderful music that you're putting out.
Oh, thank you so much. Praise God.
Well, he's doing a hell of a job. You know, God makes some hell of music through you, lady, and just keep up the good work. In fact, we're going to go out with one final track, and it's appropriately named Don't Give Up. Dimitri, thank you so much for your time tonight.
You're welcome.
Put your hands in the hand of the man. Don't. Yeah, yeah. Give up on Christ. I don't care what things may look like. Just trust him. He won't give up. He'll be there for you. All you gotta do is call on him. Yeah, yeah. When you think he should. Oh, just call him, yeah. He'll stand right by your side. Waiting to hold you, waiting to love you. Just trust and believe. Whoa. When your health is failing you, when you've lost a loved one,